A growing number of entrepreneurs, crypto investors, and high net worth individuals have been quietly moving their residency to one small country in South America. Not Dubai, not Singapore, not Portugal, but Uruguay. And here's the surprising part. In the right circumstances, investors can legally benefit from more than a decade without tax on certain foreign income while living in one of the safest, most politically stable countries in the Western Hemisphere. For most people, Uruguay barely shows up on the radar, but for globally mobile entrepreneurs and investors, it's starting to look like something very different. A strategic safe haven, a place where wealth can be protected, businesses can be run globally, and life can be lived with far less political and regulatory noise than in many Western countries. So the question is, why are more global investors suddenly paying attention to Uruguay? And could this small country quietly be becoming one of the most underrated destinations for international entrepreneurs and crypto investors today? Now, before we dive in, if you're new here, I'm Theodora from The Passport Investor, and on this channel we break down the strategies globally mobile entrepreneurs and investors use to diversify their wealth, secure second residencies and second citizenships, optimize taxes, and build international freedom. If that's something you're interested in, you're definitely in the right place. Now, to understand why Uruguay is gaining attention, we need to step back and look at a much bigger trend reshaping the world. For decades, most people lived, worked, paid taxes, and built their lives in a single country. But that model is changing rapidly. Today, entrepreneurs run companies across borders. Crypto investors hold assets that exist entirely outside traditional financial systems. Remote founders build teams spread across multiple continents, and because of that shift, wealth itself has become mobile. Where you live, where you pay taxes, and where you hold residency now matters more than ever. Countries understand this, and many governments are actively competing to attract wealthy entrepreneurs, investors, and digital talent. Some countries are becoming more restrictive, higher taxes, more regulation, greater financial surveillance, but others are going in the opposite direction. They're offering stability, favorable tax policies, and welcoming environments for globally mobile individuals. And Uruguay is one of those countries. But to see why Uruguay is gaining attention, we first need to look at the problem driving investors to search for alternatives. In the past few years, the environment for crypto investors and globally mobile entrepreneurs has changed dramatically. Governments around the world have started tightening regulations. We've seen new reporting rules, aggressive capital gains taxes, restrictions on crypto mining, and increasing scrutiny of international financial activity. In some countries, regulators are openly hostile towards crypto and digital assets. At the same time, taxes are rising in many Western economies. Income taxes, capital gains taxes, and in some cases even proposal for wealth taxes. For investors who have built global businesses or accumulated large crypto portfolios, that creates a very real question. Where can you live that offers stability, reasonable taxation, and long-term predictability? Because when you're managing significant capital, uncertainty becomes a risk, and that risk pushes many investors to start thinking internationally. Let's imagine a typical scenario. A tech entrepreneur from Europe builds a successful startup. He begins investing early in crypto. Over time, his digital assets grow significantly in value, but then regulations start changing at home. New tax rules are introduced, reporting requirements become stricter, and the political climate around wealth becomes increasingly hostile. Suddenly, the entrepreneur realizes something. The system where he has built the wealth may no longer be the best place to protect it. So he begins exploring options: Dubai, Singapore, Panama, Portugal. And eventually, he hears about Uruguay. At first, it seems unexpected. Uruguay isn't a flashy global financial center. It doesn't dominate headlines, but when he starts researching deeper, a very different picture begins to emerge. Uruguay has one of the most stable democracies in Latin America. It consistently ranks among the least corrupt countries in the region. Its legal system is respected. Property rights are strong, and the country has quietly built a reputation for being investor friendly. For someone looking for stability, those factors matter enormously. But what really starts to get attention among global investors are the structural advantages Uruguay offers. One of the biggest is its tax system. Uruguay operates largely under a territorial tax model. That means income generated outside the country can be treated differently from income generated within Uruguay. For global immobile entrepreneurs, that structure can create significant opportunities, especially if most of their income or investments are international. But perhaps the most interesting element is something known as the tax holiday for new residents. Under Uruguay's tax regime, individuals who become tax residents may qualify for an exemption on certain foreign income for up to 11 years. For global investors, that's a very powerful tool. It allows time to restructure wealth, diversify internationally, and plan long-term strategies without immediate tax exposure. Of course, the details matter. Every investor's situation is different, but it's one of the reasons Uruguay has quietly become a topic of conversation in global wealth circles. Another factor attracting attention is residency. Unlike some countries where immigration systems are complex or uncertain, Uruguay offers relatively straightforward residency pathways. You can establish tax residency by spending sufficient time in the country or by making a qualifying investment. In recent years, the government has adjusted the thresholds for certain programs, raising investment requirements and tightening some rules, but that change actually signals something important. Uruguay is positioning itself not as a mass migration destination, but as a country interested in attracting serious investors and long-term residents. And for many entrepreneurs, that's exactly the type of environment they want. Beyond residency and taxation, there's another factor that often surprises people: quality of life. Montevideo, the capital, offers a lifestyle that many expats find extremely appealing. Oceanfront neighborhoods, walkable streets, strong healthcare, reliable infrastructure, and a culture that blends European influence with South American warmth. For investors used to the intensity of major global cities, Uruguay offers something rare: calm. But the opportunities in Uruguay go beyond lifestyle. Many investors are looking at tangible assets inside the country. Agriculture and farmland have attracted significant international interest. Uruguay has strong agricultural production and a stable legal framework for land ownership. In a world where inflation, geopolitical tensions, and supply chain disruptions are increasingly common, real assets like farmland are gaining renewed attention. Owning productive land in a politically stable country can act as both an investment and a hedge against global uncertainty. Another emerging topic is crypto. While Uruguay has not positioned itself as aggressively as some countries in the crypto space, the environment has become relatively open and pragmatic. Regulators have explored frameworks for digital assets, and there has been ongoing discussion around creating clearer legal structures for crypto businesses and mining operations. Compared with jurisdictions that have imposed outright bans or extremely restrictive policies, Uruguay has taken a more measured approach. For entrepreneurs building in Web3 or digital finance, That type of regulatory environment can be appealing. However, there is an important warning here. Many people discover jurisdictions like Uruguay and assume they've found a simple tax loophole. That's a misunderstanding. Countries that offer favorable systems usually expect something in return. Real residency, real investment, real integration into the local economy. Uruguay is no different. The country rewards individuals who genuinely relocate and establish ties there. It's not designed for short-term tax tourists. And as more global investors become aware of these opportunities, governments often adjust their policies. We've seen this pattern repeatedly around the world. First, a country introduces attractive incentives, then awareness grows, demand increases, and eventually the rules become stricter. That's already started to happen in Uruguay with updated residency investment thresholds, which leads to an important point about timing. Many of the most successful wealth migration strategies come from people who move early, before jurisdictions become crowded, before programs become more restrictive, and before opportunities become widely known. So what might the future look like for Uruguay? Over the next 5 to 10 years, it's likely that Uruguay will continue gaining visibility among global immobile investors, not as a flashy tax haven, but as something far more durable, a stable, neutral, politically predictable country in a world where geopolitical tensions are rising and regulatory environments are becoming more unpredictable. Those characteristics are extremely valuable. For entrepreneurs and investors building international lives, diversification isn't just about assets anymore. It's about jurisdictions having options, having backup plans, having multiple places where you can live, invest, and operate if conditions change. Uruguay is increasingly appealing on that list. And while it may never dominate headlines like some other destinations, it offers something many investors value even more: quiet stability. So the real takeaway isn't that Uruguay is perfect for everyone. Every investor's situation is unique. But for globally minded entrepreneurs, crypto investors, and high-income professionals looking for diversification, Uruguay is becoming a jurisdiction worth paying attention to, especially while it's still relatively under the radar. If you found this useful, make sure you subscribe to the channel because we regularly break down the countries, residency strategies, and global trends that internationally mobile investors are using to protect and grow their wealth. And if you're seriously considering a second residency, tax diversification, or building an international strategy, you can book a strategy session with our team at the Passport Investor, where we help entrepreneurs and investors design a personalized global mobility plan. And if you want deeper insights, private discussions, and updates on new opportunities around the world, you can also join our community where we share resources and strategies that most people never hear about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.